All the information shared in this video is available on the public platform. Nothing is discussed here which may breach the confidentiality of our armed forces. Defense Detective respects our defense forces and works only on the information that is available for public.
In this age of infowar, it is becoming increasingly difficult to know what the reality is on the India-Pakistan front. In a sense, the disinformation war that was seen during the war in Ukraine is being replicated now in the ongoing drone missile war between India and Pakistan over the last 3 days. If you watch the Indian television news channels, India is winning the war overwhelmingly by attacking all parts of Pakistan. But if you read the social media of Pakistan, as one cannot see their news channels in India, then Pakistan has already attained a massive victory over India by not only foiling the Indian attacks but also destroying its military installations in Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir and shooting down highly expensive fighter planes like Rafale and Su-30. According to a dispassionate and respected source, India is more systematic in the ongoing disinformation war than Pakistan. While New Delhi has ensured that Pakistani channels are not easily accessible to Indians, it is deliberately feeding all misinformation to Indian news channels that are watched by millions of Pakistanis. The idea is to inject elements of fear among the Pakistanis. There is a theory that the Pakistani establishment needs Indian news channels the most when it launches a terrorist attack or wages limited wars against India. Both during the Kargil war and the attacks on Mumbai, the Pakistani handlers were getting all the information about what the Indian security forces were planning and how they were fighting the terrorists' aggressors on the ground, thanks to the hyperactive Indian news channels and journalists. Of course, now the Indian authorities have curtailed the easy access that the Indian news channels had those days when operations were on. But Pakistanis still think that the Indian channels are sources of authentic information. For instance, Indian media has been flashing reports about JF-17 shootdown, capturing F-16 pilot, hunting Pakistan's AWACS, bombing Karachi port, etc. Some even claimed seizing Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, and some reported the arrest of General Asif Munir. Therefore, if there is to be any breakthrough in the India-Pakistan impasse, New Delhi should insist that the Pakistani Army Chief, Asim Munir, be directly involved in the talks. Secondly, unlike China, which is and can be India's rival and partner simultaneously, Pakistan will always behave as India's enemy. Come what may, it will continue to promote jihad in Kashmir and other parts of India. Just days before that dastardly attack, General Munir had boasted of how Pakistan has a superior ideology and culture than that of India and how our forefathers thought that we are different from the Hindus in every aspect of life. Our religions, our customs, traditions, thoughts, and ambitions are different. That was the foundation of the two-nation theory that was laid. It is true that Pakistan was created as a state for Muslims. But for the likes of General Munir and hardliner mullahs, Pakistan is an Islamic state. For them, India is an eternal enemy, and the very identity of Pakistan is based on hatred and animosity towards India. And they seem to be increasingly dominant in Pakistan's political and public discourse. Not long ago, in one of his judgments, Pakistan's former Chief Justice Iftikhar Muhammad Chaudhry reportedly asked, "Should we accept if tomorrow Parliament declares secularism and not Islam as the state policy?" Another judge asked, "Will it be called a rightful exercise of authority if tomorrow Parliament amends Article 2 of the Constitution, which states that Islam will be the state religion?" However, this most unfortunate trend is spreading among the Pakistani intelligentsia as well. For instance, Majid Nizami, editor-in-chief of The Nation, one of Pakistan's leading newspapers, had once written that Pakistan is destined to defeat India because our horses in the form of atomic bombs and missiles are far better than Indian donkeys. According to him, if one wants to have an idea as to what would have been our condition, had Pakistan not come into existence, he should visit India to apprise himself about the untold pathetic living conditions of the Muslims there at this point of time. We were grateful to the Almighty Allah that today we had been blessed with independence. The day is not far off when we would once again conquer India. In these books, Muhammad bin Qasim, the first Muslim conqueror of the Hindu-dominated Sindh province in the 8th century, is declared the first Pakistani citizen. In Social Studies for Class 6, Sindh Textbook Board, 1997, the story of the Arabs' arrival in Sindh is counted as the first moment of Pakistan, with the glorious ascendancy of Islam. This textbook teaches that the Muslims knew that the people of South Asia were infidels and they kept thousands of idols in their temples. The Sindhi king, Raja Dahir, is described as cruel and despotic. The non-Brahmins who were tired of the cruelties of Raja Dahir joined hands with Muhammad bin Qasim because of his good treatment. According to this historical narration, Pakistan came to be established for the first time when the Arabs led by Muhammad bin Qasim occupied Sindh and Multan in the early years of the 8th century and established Muslim rule in this part of the South Asian subcontinent. Pakistan under the Arabs comprised the lower Indus Valley. It is interesting to note the flight of imagination of this author. During the 11th century, the Ghaznavid Empire comprised what is now Pakistan and Afghanistan. During the 12th century, the Ghaznavids lost Afghanistan and their rule came to be confined to Pakistan. By the 13th century, Pakistan had spread to include the whole of northern India and Bengal. Under the Khiljis, Pakistan moved further southward to include a greater part of central India and the Deccan. Many Mongols accepted Islam. As such, Pakistan remained safe for Islam. During the 16th century, Hindustan disappeared and was completely absorbed in Pakistan. Although Pakistan was created in August 1947, yet except for its name, the present-day Pakistan has existed as a more or less single entity for centuries. Thus, systematic attempts are being made by the Pakistani government to brainwash the students in schools and universities that there are irreconcilable differences between the Hindus and Muslims and that they, with their diametrically opposed world views and interests, could not have stayed together in an undivided country that India was until 1947. With such tendentious imaginings against India being legitimized by the successive governments in Pakistan, the Muslims there are forgetting the centuries-old tradition of pluralism that enriched the subcontinent, giving rise to many faiths and religions, including Sufism that guided them. Unless this entrenched anti-India mindset of the Pakistanis is changed, India will remain their eternal enemy.